Pro Football Playbook, presented by the Pigskin Podcast Network, your source for team news, draft needs, player profiles and rankings, full Senior Bowl, Combine, and NFL draft coverage, news, analysis, discussion. It's in the playbook. Now, here is your host, sports journalist Bill Alvstad, and featured analyst Keith Myers.
Greetings, football fans. Welcome in to Pro Football Playbook. I am Keith Myers. I am filling in for Bill, and filling in for me this week is Dayna O'Gorman from OurTurf Football and the OurTurf Football Podcast, and, well, a whole bunch of other things because she's one of the busiest ladies in covering the NFL. So, but she's here helping me out this week, and welcome to the show. Thanks for coming in, Dayna.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited. I love to chat football. I could do it all day.
Well, you kind of do, given all the different shows and all the different stuff that you do. And it's such a pleasure to have you here. For our new listeners for this show, Dayna's been a repeat guest many times on our Bill and my other show. Absolutely fantastic guest, extremely knowledgeable, especially for the teams out west. And that's really what I wanted us to get into today, because the AFC West is insane. You've got 4 good teams. All 4 of them look like they could be playoff teams, which is weird, but it's technically possible for all 4 teams to make the playoffs. Now that we have 7 teams make the playoffs in each conference, I don't think it's going to happen because the Bills and other teams are good as well, but there's still 4 teams capable. And so you're here. You have to help me figure this out, because one week I think I know what's going on, and then everything gets all blown up, and I don't know what's going on, and everything I thought was real is now not. So walk me through this. Are the Chiefs back to being the Chiefs after what was a really rough start?
I think they're back to being the Chiefs of 2021. So I am a big believer in Super Bowl hangovers. I know not everyone is, but then to go to back-to-back Super Bowls and losing that second one, it devastates a team. Like it's 2 very long seasons and a whole lot of expectation. And sometimes that weight is a little much for a team to carry, or they turn around and just assume they're going to win. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get one or the other. And I think that's what happened to the beginning of the season for the Chiefs. I think that there was just a lot of expectation, a lot of assumptions that they were going to walk over the top of everybody. And I saw a lot of comments of, oh, the league has figured the Chiefs out. Well, no, that's not it. They figured them out every single week. But the adaptation that we were used to seeing out of the Chiefs just wasn't there. It was missed. And the defense looked terrible. Patrick Mahomes looked like an exhausted quarterback. I mean, he was throwing those picks as much as he has ever done. And they just didn't look right. I think there was a point in this season where they had a little come to Jesus, and they were like, okay, this is embarrassing, and this is not acceptable for our team. And Andy Reid is a fantastic coach, but we know he has had so much personal stuff going on, with what happened with his son right before the Super Bowl last year. And so I think that there was just a lot happening, and they had to kind of regroup. And they got in. Are they the Chiefs of the last 2 seasons? I'm not going to say that. I just don't quite see the same spark out of them that we had seen in the last couple of years. But I still think that they are a very good football team. I don't know that they're going to the Super Bowl, but they are the best version of what they have in 2021.
Okay, so You mentioned Mahomes and the picks. He's got more picks this year than the last 2 years combined, and we've still got 5 games left. That'll give you an idea of kind of what's going on with him. The offense hasn't looked great. The talent's still there. Is it just a matter of just making too many mistakes and not being sharp, or is this a case where you've seen, okay, yeah, him and Hill are there, and the running back, but the offensive line has kind of been an issue. That was why, in my opinion, why they lost the Super Bowl last year, because both their offensive tackles were hurt. And then so they shipped them off and brought in 2 new ones, and they've had some injuries there again. And is it just a case where the line's bad, or, and so it's a talent deficit there, or is there something bigger going on?
I think it's a little more encompassing than just the line. So the line had 2 or 3 rookies starting on it this year. Like, they were babies. We kept calling them the baby line because they were just so young. And so I think it took them a while to get comfortable in the NFL, and then the injuries kind of piled up a bit. I think that is an issue. So I think that they've looked a little bit better. It's, for me, the biggest change were those Patrick Mahomes when he would overturn the ball. We all know that the media loves to hype up when he does the weird little side passes and the no look passes like it's never been done before. The media goes crazy for it. It's been done before, but he was very good at it, right? I get it. People were excited. It was fun. Well, a lot of those were the throws that were getting picked off now, were those ones where he was trying to. The teams have learned just because he's looking one direction doesn't mean he's not going to throw it. And I think they've started to watch him a little bit differently, prepare a little bit differently. So I think that's part of that. And then there is a confidence level. We all know once a quarterback starts turning it over, you have a tendency to see it spiral a little bit. I think there's a little bit of a confidence issue there. And it took him a minute to get that back. Patrick Mahomes is a fantastic quarterback, one of the best without question. So of course he was going to get it back together. But he's still really young. And so I think that maybe it just took him a little bit longer than maybe it would have a Rodgers or a Brady or someone who's been in the league for just a little bit longer. I think he had to kind of snap out of that. He has 3,300 yards, I think, this season. So, I mean, it's not like he isn't getting the job done. I just think that there was a little bit of a confidence issue. And when you don't trust your line, you're going to run, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to, assume some things. And so I think that took a little bit of time. I'm a little fascinated with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. There seems to be a lack of sharpness there at the beginning of the season. I think they've gotten some of that back. I think that you throw it to Kelce, he catches it, it's done, kind of guarantee is gone now. And so I think that is something that they had to learn and adapt to. So I think they had a lot of little bits that didn't seem like a huge issue, but when you added them all up, it was a big problem.
So you're there in Kansas City. I know you're not a Chiefs fan, but you do live there in Kansas City. How were people just like melting down with, oh my God, the sky is falling, when they were, 1-3 at the beginning of the year?
No, really, they weren't. God love Chiefs fans. They're like, oh, well, we had a good 2 years. That's it. We're done. Like they're so used to being hot and cold over the years. They're like, well, we got a Super Bowl. I guess we should be happy with it. I don't know what happened. And I would talk to them, especially my coworkers and friends. It's like, oh, Dayna, they're going to figure it out. And I'm like, yeah, they are. It's the beginning of the season. Give them a minute. They've had to overcome some issues. So let's just see kind of what happens from them. But no, mostly it was just resignation of, oh, I guess we suck now. That's okay. So. That's actually entertaining to me because, I'm
a Seahawks fan. And so I try not to, I don't really do that on this show because this is the NFL show, but the Seahawks were in the AFC West for a long time. So all of the hatred for the rivals is gone. And I like to watch the Chiefs play, and I like to watch Denver and the other teams we're going to talk about here. And because it's like they're the rival that I used to hate, but now I don't because they're not in the league, and they're just fun. And so just you give that description of the Chiefs, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, yeah, I can kind of see that because there's always one year, a couple of years they had Christian Okoye as their running back, and they were just the power running team, and then he gets hurt, and it's like, okay, that's over. There was never any oh, it's going to keep going, or oh, we need to find another back. It's over.
It was good while it lasted.
I'm dating myself. That was way back in the 90s. But yeah, that does kind of sound like the Chiefs.
Yeah,
it really does.
It's true, right?
So the Chiefs are the class of the division. I said that coming in. I thought that when they had that rough start, that it opened the door, especially for the Chargers, who looked like I mean, they were the other playoff team last year. Herbert looks fantastic. Like they've got their quarterback of the future figured out, and the offense and all of that, but they just have not been able. They couldn't take advantage of the fact that Kansas City was down, because their defense is so bad.
Right.
Are they going to be able to string this together with some wins, or is that defense just going to hold them back too much?
So interesting note, over at the OurTurf Football podcast that I do, the beginning of the season, we pick the divisions, we think who's going to win, that sort of thing before the week before the first game. There's 4 of us that do that podcast, and each one of us picked a different team in the AFC West. Every single week, each one of us picked a different team. I was the only one that picked the Chiefs. Kate was convinced the Raiders were going to be just crazy good. I mean, it was just, and I find that's what's fun about this division, right? Is that you get that.
It's a great division. It's a lot of fun. So,
the thing with Los Angeles, the Chargers, is that
did I say San Diego? I probably said. I think that's been my thing, is that they are still the San Diego Chargers in my brain, and no matter how much other people correct me and say LA, and it's not that I do it on purpose, where I'm just like, no, I'm going to be stubborn. I just can't. I can't say LA Chargers. They've been in San Diego for too long.
I still say Oakland. So I get it. I totally get it. Yeah. So here's the thing with the Chargers. They have a quarterback for the future. Justin Herbert is amazing, and he's so fun to watch. The kid is so shy. He will not take an interview. He's just that. He is what I call the new Peyton Manning, not in the way he plays football, but in the way he's so likable and everyone wants him to do well. You know what I mean? So you have that. He's at about 3,500 yards for the season. The lucky thing about them, the rest of that offense is clicking. I want to know how to get Austin Eckler to my favorite team, because he's just been such a good time. I love everything about him. He's just so much fun. But they do have 100. So Derwin James has 100 tackles. And then Keenan Allen, God love Keenan Allen, still here. Keenan Allen, God love you. So he's almost at 1,000 yards too. So it's been. This offense is good. Where they have been struggling definitely is on defense. And in this division, you're not going to be able to get away with that for long. But if you look at, I'm trying to find their schedule. If you look at the schedule they have for the rest of the year, they get to play the Giants. I say get to, because they get to play the Giants. They play Kansas City again, but they get to play them at home this time, and they beat them in Arrowhead earlier in the season. We need to remember that. They get to play Houston. They get to play Denver and Vegas. So their last 2 games are divisional games. And so I think that what we need to look for is, can they capitalize on those teams that they should beat, those teams that they should, do really well with? And then can they beat the Chiefs again? I think that's going to be a pivotal game for them. Obviously, not just because it's a divisional game, but I think it just gives them the momentum, to continue to move up within this division. The interesting thing is so the Chiefs are at 8-4. The Chargers are 7-5. It's not like they have to make a huge jump here, right? They don't have to go far. Where the Raiders are at 6-6, the Broncos are at 6-6. So they're 2 games behind, but the Chargers are just right there. I think they have the talent to do it.
Well, and the Texans and Giants, those are winnable games.
Super winnable games.
Yeah. I'm trying not to just, they're going to win those games, because
they're still professional sports. Yeah.
It's the NFL, right? So we don't quite go there, but those are very winnable games. And if they pick up one more of the 3 division games, that gets them to 10 wins. That's probably enough to get them in as a wild card team. I mean, the AFC is so weird because there's so many good teams, but they're all beating up on each other. And as you just said, the 5 games left, 3 of those games are against divisional opponents. So, there's going to be losses had by all of those teams. So, 10 wins probably gets you in.
I think 10 wins get you in.
They look like a playoff team to me. I don't know if they do much once they get there, because you can't stop the run, and if you can't stop the run, you're not going far in the playoffs.
It's going to depend on their matchups. Really,
yep.
It's going to be interesting. Do I think they win the division? I think if the Chiefs stumble down the line, maybe. But no, I definitely think they're going to end up in the playoffs for sure.
Yeah, I just don't think that you want to go into Buffalo or New England, or
no one wants to play New England.
Yeah, or the Bengals, or and go into those games when you can't stop the run and it's 3 degrees outside and snowing, and you're going to be hurting because they're going to run it because they know that that's the best way to do it, and you can't stop it. So that's just going to be bad. But I think they're a good team, and I wanted the Chargers to be the team to come out of that division. Not that I don't like the Chiefs and I don't like Mahomes, and I'm a big Andy Reid fan. I'm so glad he got a Super Bowl. But I just wanted something different, and I always root for chaos when it comes to all of the divisions and teams except for mine. I always root for chaos, and the Chiefs ending up as like a wild card team or missing the playoffs, even if it's just by a half a game or whatever, that would be chaos. And so I wanted the Chargers, but that defense just isn't good. It's just not good enough.
Yeah. But I look at this team and I think 2 fixes and they are a Super Bowl level team. 2 fixes. Fix the run game. You know what I mean? There's just these tiny little tweaks. The rest of it is set up. So depending on their contract situation, their cap situation, their draft situation, but honestly, it's not going to take much for the Chargers.
No. If they can go spend their first round pick on a really good defensive tackle right in the middle of that defense actually would greatly improve, and they could use an edge setter on the strong side. But yeah, they need a big body that can dominate in the middle, and they'll be fine. So moving on to the Raiders, and I almost said Oakland, even though you warned me a couple minutes ago. Vegas.
I do it too. I do it too.
So Vegas. So this was a team. They were actually kind of a sexy pick before the season. People were like, this team is scary. They're good. They've got talent in the right places and all of that. The whole Gruden thing blew up, and I thought, that's the end. It's too much drama, too much other stuff going on. I kind of expected them to fall off. They've really held it together surprisingly well. They've made some mistakes here and there. I do think that they miss Gruden as a coach, and his ability to motivate guys and to innovate and push the right buttons on offense. But they still managed to continue to play well. They're 6-6, and I would not have expected them to be in the playoff hunt at this point when Gruden got fired. So it's an interesting spot for them to be in. Can they finish? Can they get from here to the end?
My first answer is no. I think that there has been a little too much, chaos, for lack, to use your word, within the entire team. It's not just Gruden. They, lost a player. They have, there's a lot going on there, and they've lost 4 out of their last 5. So they're not on a good streak right now. And the teams they lost to, they lost to Kansas City. No one was surprised with that. They lost to Cincinnati. Cincinnati is the surprise team of the year. So, okay, that makes a little sense. Washington, 4-game winning streak. Okay, we understand that. But they also lost to the Giants. And I think it's like a little of that inconsistency. They lost to the Bears. So it's like, I'm not sure how this team is set up to continue far. If they sneak into the playoffs, they'll be done right away. But I don't see them getting there. They have to play Kansas City. They play all 3 of their opponents again, and they have Cleveland and the Colts. It's just a hard road. So I'm not super confident in this Raiders team. I think going into next year, whatever they do coaching wise, although apparently their owner is not bothering to look for a coach yet. And so we will, he's like, I'll look later. Okay, Mark Davis. So, but I think that going into next year, they've got such great pieces that they could still be another good team. I don't think this team is blown up. I don't think they have to change a lot. I just think that this is not their year with all the stuff that went on and the schedule, the way it's lining up.
Yeah. I would, I mean, it does kind of feel that way. The losing 4 or 5, they've been trending in the wrong direction, and it's really been since Gruden left. But at the same time, they've been competitive. They haven't just fallen apart. Yeah. And so, I mean, and that's a credit to the leaders in the locker room. I think that, Carr and company, they've kept things going in the right way. It's because it's hard. It would be really easy for people to just roll over and be like, okay, the season's over. Let's, get through the year. Don't get hurt and move on. But they're continuing to be competitive. Now, they're not winning. I'd like to see them win more, but they have also played some tough teams. So
they have. And I think that the don't roll over and die mentality is kind of floating through a lot of teams because of how mushed in the middle everyone is in both conferences. So it's like, well, you could roll over and die, but if you just win a few more games, you could end up in the playoffs. Do you know what I mean? And there's playoff bonuses written into players' contracts, and there's all kinds of stuff. So if they can keep trying and sneak in, that would be huge. And so I think that that's partly why a lot of these teams aren't just saying, well, screw it, we're done for the year, because there's still that chance because of how odd it is this year. It's
an odd year, but I think the 7th playoff spot it does make a huge difference, because there's that, there's going to be one iffy team. Because usually, I mean, you've got 6, and there's always like that 1 or 2 teams that just miss, and you're like, yeah, but you know what? You didn't make it, but you weren't that good. And now there's that extra spot, and one of those teams that is not that good is going to make it. And so, but you know what it's done? It's kept everything really interesting, because like in the NFC, there's really one team that isn't really in it. And in the AFC, there's like 3. So every other team is still like, hey, we could still do this. So it's fun. And that's kind of the point. We missed a team, Denver, probably, or they're the best defense in the division. Their offense is weird at times. I like Teddy Bridgewater. I think he is he's much better than his reputation, but his reputation is so bad that that's still not saying much. But it has more to do with, part of it is, he almost lost his leg with that hit when he was a Viking, and they were able to save it, and it was a huge battle just for him to get back on the field at all. Now he's a starting quarterback again. He's been playing pretty well, completing over 70% of his passes. But really, he doesn't have to do as much because the defense is so good.
Right.
And I was surprised that they traded away Von Miller in the middle of all of this. One of the best pass rushers we've seen in the last, decade. And they traded him away mid-season in the middle of a playoff run. And it hasn't slowed the defense down any.
And hasn't really helped the Rams defense either, but that's a whole different conversation.
That's a whole nother conversation.
But interestingly enough, with that, I liked that move. Now, normally I'm not a big fan of trading away your superstars unless that superstar is really toward the end of their career. And Vaughn he's been around forever. He's one of the best, no question, but he's not on the upside here. You know what I mean? I liked it because I felt like it was the more forward thinking than I have seen out of the Broncos over the last few years. I feel like they were like, this might hurt us this year, but we need those draft picks for later. And God knows the Rams hand out draft picks like suckers at a doctor's office, right? So I think that it was very forward thinking of them. And I actually liked the move. Here's the thing with Denver. I wrote an article about them right before the season started. It says, are we ignoring the Denver Broncos? Because no one was talking about Denver and the way that team was set up. The rookies they brought in there, Jerry Jeudy, and how fantastic he was. They have all of these players that were just flying under the radar, and they're no longer flying under the radar. I think that people are starting to give the respect that is truly due there in Denver. Their schedule also, they get to play Detroit, And then again, they have Cincinnati, Vegas, LA, and Kansas City. So this is not going to be an easy road for them either. They just played Kansas City. I was really kind of hoping to see a little more from them in that game than we got. But Arrowhead is hard. Arrowhead is hard, and we know that. And so, some respect there. And the Chiefs don't play well in Denver, and that is the last game of the season. So it'll be interesting to see how that rolls out. But you were right at the beginning when you said technically there could be 4 teams in the playoffs here. I don't think. I think at most there'll be 3, and I think it'd be Denver that squeaks in if they manage to do that. But I really just kind of see the Chargers and the Chiefs kind of ending up at the end there. But such great strides for Denver compared to what we saw last year. So I was thrilled.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting to see that, they made that trade, and I was like, oh, so does that mean they're pulling the plug on the year? And they haven't. They've been good. The defense, and like I said, it's a whole other conversation to talk about the Von Miller to the Rams. The Broncos defense hasn't taken a step back without Von Miller. And I'm wondering, I'm like, we know he tore his knee, and then he got COVID, and he was the guy who was like, COVID's no joke. I had it. It took me 6 months. And all that. I'm like, did Denver see a loss of athleticism or that kind of stuff? They saw it. They saw the writing on the wall, and they knew they had the younger players in the rotation. Okay, we're just going to play these other guys because we've already got the next guy here. So let's go ahead and use his reputation to get picks.
And it worked like a charm, Sean McVay. It worked like a charm.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because I think that a lot of people were like, oh, they're losing their leader in that locker room. Well, then they haven't been paying attention, because people love Teddy Bridgewater. The players love Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah. Justin Simmons sitting back there in safety, fantastic player, great leader. I don't think that they really have missed a beat in the locker room without Von Miller, even though I have so much respect for him, and definitely not on the field.
Yeah. And that's it. It's the on the field part that it surprised me, because it's just one of those things. You pencil in Von Miller as one of the top defensive players in the AFC just every year, because he's just good. And then he gets traded, and you're like, what are they doing? They're trading their best defender. You got to go back and compare your notes, because I don't know if he was their best defender anymore. You mentioned Simmons at safety. He's been fantastic. And how much of Von Miller this year is his reputation versus his production?
It's fair.
And I don't know. And I can't say that I have gone in and really studied. I mean, I've watched a bunch of Broncos games, but I haven't really studied them, because I'm more just watching for fun when, when these teams are playing, and I'm okay with that. So I like what they're doing. I like the fact that Elway is kind of taken a step back, turned the reins over to someone who's a little bit better at player evaluation,
quarterback evaluation.
Okay, I was there, because he has not been a good quarterback evaluator, which is weird, because if you think there's one thing he would know, it would be quarterback play. But yeah, they're a better team this year than I think a lot of people. So who from the OurTurf one picked the Denver? Because you said there was 4 of you, and each of you picked a different team. I believe it was so I picked the Chiefs. Kate picked the Raiders. So it was either Sonia or Lisa. I'd have to go back and look at the show, or I could ask them. But yeah, and now I think it was Sonia, because she said that my article convinced her to support the Broncos. And I was like, I'm telling you, there's something there. I don't know that they're going to win anything, but there's something there. Yeah, I think you're right when you were saying that they like had all these under the radar guys that aren't under the radar anymore, and they've got talent there, and people are going to question, like, are they a quarterback away? I mean, I like Teddy Bridgewater, but are they make a run at Aaron Rodgers in order to basically pull a Peyton Manning again and go win another Super Bowl or something like that?
I don't know that they'll do that because of the Peyton Manning situation. It's like, can you really catch fire twice? I don't know that you can. And honestly, I don't know that Aaron Rodgers is going to play after this year. So I think that I don't know what they're going to do. But another article that I wrote earlier in the year, it was after the first week, because all 4 AFC West teams won and all 4 NFC West teams won. I said the West is the best. And I think that we have said that about the NFC West for a long time. They're all really good teams. But I think the AFC West is going to be good, all of them, for a while. And it's going to be a blast to watch.
Yep. It's fun when you have a division that has, and that's why I had you come on just to talk about this division, because all 4 teams are good. In the NFC West, it started out that way, but then Seattle just fell off, and the 49ers fell off, and it's really a 2-team thing. But even the Rams have lost like 3 out of 4, and they're starting to fall apart. And Arizona looks like world beaters at this point, and they were winning without their quarterback, and it didn't even matter.
And their top wide receiver.
and Hopkins was out too. So that division looks a lot less fun, because it's pretty much Arizona's going to just run away with it. But that's not true in the AFC. The AFC West has been fun, and usually it's the AFC North, where you've got multiple teams that are there doing their thing and always fighting it out, and then you got like teams like Cleveland who are scrapping and trying to get some recognition and just to get into the playoffs. And then last year they finally did, and so they had all these expectations, and they haven't been able to meet those expectations. So they're struggling a little bit, but usually it's that division, right? And it's still fun because 3 of the teams are still in it, but AFC West is probably the most fun division this year, just because all 4 teams at this point. There's 5 games left. They're all within 2 games. Everyone's at 500 or better.
Yeah, it's gonna. And honest to God, we can assume that the Chiefs are going to win all their games, and do not assume that, because these teams play each other very tough. It's going to be great. It's going to come down to the wire. It's going to be a lot of fun. I always say that, barring any injuries, obviously. But I think it'll be a lot of fun.
The one thing that I wonder is, we know that Arrowhead is an absolutely rough place to play. It is one of the toughest places to go in and play a team, and that's true even when the Chiefs aren't good. When they're bad, Arrowhead is still loud and rowdy, and it is a thing. And people don't understand just how. My guess is there's just nothing else to do in Kansas City.
Well, that's not true. Don't diss my city. It's amazing here.
I said that just because no, but it's always been a really tough place to play. Is Vegas? Is LA for the Chargers? Right?
Yeah. No, I mean, to be honest with you, those are both what I call destination cities. So the away fans will go there and fill those stadiums with away fans. Denver is probably the next hardest place to play.
Denver's a brutal place to play. I mean, Mile High it's not Arrowhead in terms of how loud and all of that, but the elevation is a thing. It
in
isn't
December
just
and January.
It isn't just something that people talk about. Oh, whatever. No, it's actually a thing. You go there. For sure. And you get tired quickly. I can tell you go up one flight of stairs and you're like, why am I dying?
Because there's no oxygen.
Because there's no oxygen here. And so it really is a thing. So those, to me, 5 games left. Everyone plays all the other ones in the division. Those 2 teams have an advantage because they've got home field. And I honestly don't believe the other 2 do. I mean, sorry, Vegas and the Chargers. Move back to San Diego. I'm sure you'll have home fans again.
Go back. Yeah, exactly.
So, okay. We are at a half an hour. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Go ahead and plug, because you are on a bunch of shows and and you have your site and everything that you do. Please go plug all of that because my listeners need to be able to go find you.
Oh, you're so sweet. So yes, OurTurfFB.com is the OurTurf Football website. We do our podcast via YouTube every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time. And it's an interactive show. So if you type into our chat, we are going to answer your questions. That's why we like to do our podcast. It's super fun that way. I'm also on Real Hawk Talk, which is a Seattle Seahawks specific podcast, which is on every Wednesday at it would be 11 p.m. Eastern because it's 8 o'clock in Seattle when they do that podcast. And then I also do a UK-based podcast called End Zone Scoop, which is kind of fun. It's NFL with the tilt from the other side of the pond. So that's a lot of fun. And then you can find me on Twitter. It's at Dayna OG.
Awesome. Yeah. So everyone, thank you for tuning in. You can find me. I'm at Myers NFL. You can find Bill, who will be back hopefully next week, maybe the week after. He's Alvstad NFL. The show is PF_Playbook. Pro Football Playbook.com is the website. You can find us genuinely everywhere, from YouTube to any podcast place. So subscribe, please. We need some more subscribers. So go ahead and subscribe to us there. And that's it. So thank you everyone for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Pro Football Playbook Podcast. Follow Keith at Myers NFL. Bill is at Alvstad NFL. The show is at PF_Playbook. Listen and subscribe on your favorite podcast app or YouTube, and at our website, profootballplaybook.co.